Ever since the movie 300 was released, it seems that everybody knows about the impressive Spartan warriors. With their red cloaks, bronze helmets, and their almost invincible shield formation, the phalanx, they've become iconic figures in pop culture. Today, the Spartans are often admired for their toughness, discipline, and martial strength. But behind this image is the reality that the life of a Spartan warrior was far from easy. In today's video, we take a look behind the curtain and bring you face to face with the brutal reality of a Spartan life. From the relentless training regimen to the strict lifestyle they were forced to lead, we will explore the less talked about aspects of being a Spartan warrior and take a look how they forged boys into men under the harshest circumstances possible. There was a time when Sparta wasn't much different from the rest of Greece. The city-state was just another participant in the cultural and political landscape of ancient Greece. However, a revolutionary change was brought about by a man named Lycurgus, who is traditionally credited as the lawgiver of Sparta. According to historical accounts, Lycurgus radically transformed Sparta into the militaristic society we all know today around the 7th century BC. Every aspect of Spartan life was reoriented towards one singular goal: the creation of perfect warriors. The Spartan constitution, or rhetra, allegedly designed by Lycurgus, fostered discipline, obedience, and endurance, the very attributes that would become synonymous with Spartan warriors. Instead of following the rest of Greece and focusing on philosophy, art, and public discourse, they formed a society around its military needs, demanding a life of sacrifice, discipline, and a stoic acceptance of one's destiny. After the changes Lycurgus made, all male citizens were considered soldiers with their lives meticulously organized and controlled by the state. The class of warriors known as Spartiates were the ruling elite and enjoyed a privileged status. But this privilege came at a price. From early childhood, they were subjected to a rigorous training program and a regimented way of life designed to turn them into the most feared warriors in all of Greece. But we are going more in depth about their training in a moment. For Spartans, it wasn't just about the battlefield. Spartan warriors also played a central role in society. They were the embodiment of Spartan ideals and values. Their conduct, courage, and physical strength were constantly being watched, serving as a constant reminder of the standards each Spartan was expected to uphold. However, the life of a Spartan warrior wasn't something you decided on when you were an adult. Instead, it was a lifelong commitment that began at an incredibly young age. This is what separated Sparta from the rest of Greece, their well-known agoge, which is the Spartan military program that every Spartan male had to go through, and it started at the age of 7. In today's world, most 7-year-olds were playing with their friends and starting school. However, Spartan boys back then were taken from their families and sent to live in military barracks. Their lives from that moment onward revolved around discipline, endurance, and learning how to fight and survive. For these young boys, the agoge was as much about mental toughness as it was about physical toughness. For example, they were deliberately underfed not to starve them, but to force them to become resourceful and learn how to steal. And even though they were forced to steal, getting caught wasn't taken lightly and resulted in harsh punishments not for the act of stealing, but for the failure of not being stealthy, which is a skill essential in warfare. One thing that is not often talked about is that they were actually taught how to read and write, but mostly they learned about warfare. They relentlessly practiced combat with peers, learned the art of ambush, how to endure all types of weather conditions, and above all, they were taught to endure pain. This training lasted for 13 years, and by the time they were 20, these boys would have transformed into formidable warriors, equipped to protect Sparta from its enemies. This brutal childhood, stripped of comfort and filled with hardship, was not seen as cruelty in Sparta. Instead, it was viewed as essential training that equipped Spartan men with the skills and mindset they needed to survive the realities of warfare and protect their city-state. Now, having heard about the grueling agoge and the tough life Spartan boys had to endure from such an early age, you might wonder, does it get any easier when they grow up? Well, let's dive into the daily life of a fully fledged Spartan warrior. After the agoge was finished, the life of a Spartan warrior was centered around maintaining their fighting skills and rigorous discipline. Each day began at dawn with a grueling training routine that pushed their bodies to the limits. For them, this wasn't an occasional workout, but a way of life. being the cornerstone of their identity as Spartan warriors. Contrary to the rest of Greece at that time, food wasn't eaten for pleasure. In fact, food was far from luxurious or indulgent. They subsisted on a diet designed for sustenance and endurance. Therefore, the mainstay of their food was a simple and hearty dish called a melos zomos, which was black broth, made from boiled pork, vinegar, and blood. In my opinion, the broth is the perfect symbol for their way of life, basic, functional, and devoid of frills. There are even historical accounts of foreigners visiting Sparta, and they found it unpalatable. But today we know that this diet is the perfect example of their resilience and dedication and their worldview that life is not about the pursuit of pleasure, but for the enhancement of physical and mental power. This way of life can also be seen in their harsh and unyielding living conditions. Even though they had a very high social status in Sparta, they didn't live in luxury. See, since they were kids, they were trained to withstand the elements and harsh conditions, cultivating resilience and endurance. Therefore, luxuries and personal comforts were deemed unnecessary and often despised, as they were believed to foster softness and weakness. Spartan warriors resided in communal barracks, with personal space being extremely scarce. These barracks were intentionally basic and bare, providing only the most essential provisions for sleep and rest. The structures, often made of simple mud brick or stone, contained communal sleeping areas that were shared among warriors, promoting unity but providing little in terms of privacy or comfort. In general, there was a stark absence of personal freedom in the life of a Spartan warrior, with the state dictating their lives, shaping their routines, and dictating their actions. This rigid discipline and self-denial were prerequisites to fulfill their most important function, engaging in war and conflict. When the day of battle came, every Spartan was ready and prepared, and stepping into the battlefield was the culmination of a Spartan warrior's lifelong training. Their skills in combat were legendary, and they were known for their fearlessness, discipline, and remarkable ability to work as a unit. In the chaos of battle, Spartan warriors were often expected to hold the line, even against overwhelming odds. The famous Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, immortalized in history and pop culture, was an extreme example of this, where 300 Spartans and their allies faced a vastly superior Persian force. But in everyday campaigns, Spartans were routinely put to the test, facing hardship, injury, and death. One of their favorite activities was to raid the Helots. Since all Spartan men were raised as warriors, they had to win their meals and food through victory in battle. On the battlefield, a Spartan's life was expendable. The shield they carried was symbolic of their duty. It was not just for their own protection, but for the safety of their comrades. Losing one's shield in battle was considered the ultimate disgrace because it implied the warrior had prioritized his survival over the defense of his fellow soldiers and the battle line. Injuries were common, and the Spartan ethos dictated that pain should be endured without complaint. Those who died in battle were celebrated as heroes, while survival often meant preparing for the next conflict. War was the central element of a Spartan warrior's life, and peace brought no respite, only anticipation for the next fight. The life for a Spartan warrior was a constant cycle between discipline, sacrifice, and battle, and in reality, the glory on the battlefield was overshadowed by the stark reality of danger, pain, and early death. But exactly this image, to exist for the art of war, made them a feared opponent to anyone that dared to seek conflict. And while their warrior culture painted a picture of glory and honor associated with the ultimate sacrifice, dying on the battlefield, there is a flip side to this idea of heroic death. The grim reality of loss, sacrifice, and the burden placed on the shoulders of every Spartan man. Spartan warriors were brought up with the belief that death on the battlefield was the greatest honor they could achieve. This sentiment was embedded in them from childhood, with stories of valor and courage, setting a precedent for their future. Mothers sent off their sons to war with the chilling instruction, "Return with your shield," or "on it," underlining the expectation to either triumph or die trying, but never to retreat. And while this ethos created an army of fearless warriors, it also cultivated a society where physical and psychological pain wasn't made a topic, since it was expected to endure without complaint. Their bodies constantly being pushed to the limits through physical conditioning and combat, resulting in injury, was seen as an integral part of their existence. Their mental toll was no less severe, As kids, they were put into a world where weakness was abhorred and survival was an everyday battle. At the same time, they were taught to suppress their emotions, hide their pain, and meet death with stoicism. This psychological conditioning resulted in an undeniable resilience, but at the cost of emotional well-being. Moreover, the societal pressure to embody the ideal Spartan warrior left no room for deviation. Fear, anxiety, or any hint of hesitance was seen as a weakness. This perpetual state of suppression could lead to mental health issues, further exacerbated by the regular witnessing of violent death and personal injuries in battles. This is the price the Spartan warriors had to pay for being known as the best and most fearsome warriors in the ancient world. But do you think it was worth the price? Let me know down in the comments, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to Past Perspectives to never miss another history topic you've never learned about in school. With that being said, thanks for watching, and until next time.